Friends, welcome back to Dream Up Reads. Have you ever felt guilty for not being productive enough? Experienced procrastination, burnout, or lack of motivation? Have you wondered how some people achieve so much without compromising their happiness and well-being? If any of these questions resonate, this video is for you. Today, I'll introduce Feel Good Productivity, How to Do More of What Matters to You, written by Dr. Ali Abdaal, arguably one of the world's foremost productivity experts. This book is divided into 3 sections. 1. Energizes. 2. Blockers. 3. Sustainers. Each part addresses different aspects of feel-good productivity with practical tools and strategies for applying it in the workplace or life in general. Chapter 1. Play. In Chapter 1, he told us that seriousness is overrated. If you want to achieve more without ruining your life, the first step is to approach your work with a sense of play. There are 3 ways you can incorporate the spirit of play into your life. First, approach things with a sense of adventure. When you step into the right play personality, every day abounds with opportunities to see life as a game, filled with surprises and side quests. These are the 8 play personalities. 1. The collector. They loves to gather and organize, enjoying activities like searching for rare plants or rummaging around in archives or garage sales. 1. The competitor. They enjoys games and sports and takes pleasure in trying their best and winning. 1. The explorer. They likes to wander, discovering new places and things they've never seen through hiking, road tripping, and other adventures. 1. The creator. They finds joy in making things and can spend hours every day drawing, painting, making music, gardening, and more. 1. The storyteller. They have an active imagination and uses their imagination to entertain others. They're drawn to activities like writing, dance, theater, and role-playing games. 1. The joker. They endeavors to make people laugh and may play by performing stand-up, doing improv, or just pulling a lot of pranks to make you smile. 1. The director. They likes to plan, organize, and lead others, and can fit into many different roles and activities, from directing stage performances to running a company to working in political or social advocacy. 1. The kinesthete. They finds play in physical activities like acrobatics, gymnastics, and free running. 2. Find the fun. Remember Mary Poppins? There's an element of fun in every task, even if it isn't always obvious. Try asking yourself what this would look like if it were fun, and then build your projects around the answer. 3. Lower the stakes. Failures are only failures when you think they are, and not every problem need be approached with such a straight face. So what would it mean to approach your work with less seriousness and more sincerity? Chapter 2. Power. Power is a scary word, but it doesn't have to be. When we say the second energizer is power, we don't mean exerting control over others. Here, we simply mean feeling empowered to take your job, life, and future into your own hands. There are 3 ways you can increase your sense of power, starting now. Begin with confidence. We think our confidence is fixed, but actually, it's extremely malleable. So why not try flipping the confidence switch and playing the role of someone who's already filled with self-belief? Next time you're feeling like a task or project is particularly difficult, ask yourself, what would it look like if I were really confident at this? Just by asking yourself the question, you'll visualize yourself confidently approaching the task at hand. The switch has been flipped. Next, level up your skills. Ask yourself, if I were completely new to this task, what would this look like? And how can I start teaching others even though I'm not an expert yet? Finally, see what you can do to take ownership, even in moments when you don't have as much control as you'd like. Remember, if you can't choose what you work on, you can still choose how you work on it. The outcome isn't always in your hands, but the process and certainly your mindset often is. Viktor Frankl, the Austrian psychiatrist and survivor of the Auschwitz concentration camp during World War II, put it beautifully. Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Have you ever noticed that after hanging out or working with certain people, you feel like you're ready to take on the world? These are the people who uplift your spirits and fill you with energy. You want to be around them. On the other hand, you've also probably come across people who leave you feeling drained and exhausted after every interaction. It's as if they cast a shadow over your mood and motivation. People learn to avoid them like the plague. And they learn fast. Life is more fun with friends around. That's why our third energizer is people. There are some people who naturally uplift our energy. The trick is finding them. That starts with becoming a team player. Try treating the people you're working with as comrades rather than competitors. Building connections with people is also about lending them a hand. This cuts both ways. Not only do we too rarely help others, we also too rarely ask for help. So try asking, what can I do to brighten someone else's day? Finally, remember the most oft forgotten truth about human interaction. When you think you've communicated too much, you probably haven't communicated enough. Is there a piece of information you're hoarding that might just make someone else's week? Part 2. Unblock. Chapter 4. Seek clarity. The research offers the first hint as to how and why uncertainty drives procrastination. People with a low tolerance of uncertainty tend to view uncertain situations as threatening and anxiety-provoking, leading them to put things off, particularly on tasks involving any ambiguity. Why? Well, according to a review on the relationship between anxiety and uncertainty, there are a handful of processes that reinforce the loop between uncertainty, anxiety, and paralysis. 1. We overestimate what's at stake. Someone who's already anxious will think that the uncertain event is going to be worse than it already is. 1. We become hypervigilant, sensing that something negative might happen. Our safety antennae prick up to the sign of any potential danger. 2. We stop recognizing safety cues. Because we're hypervigilant to threats, we're not able to calm down when there really is no danger. We get procrastination wrong. All too often, we approach procrastination by treating the symptoms rather than the underlying causes. And all too often, those causes relate to our mood. When we feel bad, we achieve less. So the unblock method is about establishing what's really blocking your good mood and finding a way to eliminate it. The first emotional barrier is the simplest: uncertainty. The solution: to gain clarity about what you're actually doing. That involves asking why, and then using this to figure out your how. Next, ask what. That means an alternative approach to goal setting. Forget SMART goals. What you need are goals that feel nice, near-term, input-based, controllable, and energizing. Near-term. Near-term goals ensure that we're concentrating on the immediate steps we need to take along our journey. They help us avoid being overwhelmed by the bigger picture. I find that a daily or weekly objective is the most helpful time horizon. Input-based goals emphasize the process rather than some distant abstract end goal, whereas an output-based goal would home in on the end result. Lose 5 kg by the end of the year, hit the bestseller list with my book. An input-based goal would focus on what we can do in the here and now. Go for a 10-minute walk every day. Write 100 words each morning for my novel. Controllable. We want to focus on goals that are within our control. Spend 8 hours a day on my novel probably isn't something you can actually do, since many external factors would have to come together for such an input to be possible. Setting a more genuinely controllable goal, like allocating 20 minutes per day to the task, is far more realistic. Energizing. We've already discussed plenty of principles and strategies for making our projects, tasks, and chores more energizing. Is there a way to integrate play, power, and people into the goals you set yourself? Last, ask when. If you don't know when you're going to do something, chances are you won't do it. One solution is to use implementation intentions, where your common daily habits become triggers for the things you intend to work on. For example, if I brush my teeth, then I'll stretch my hamstring. Chapter 5. Find courage. Our second emotional blocker is even thornier: fear. If you've ever put off applying for a daunting job or asking someone you like on a date, you've encountered this particular monster. The solution isn't to get rid of fear though. Instead, it's to develop the courage to face up to it. That courage comes from 3 sources. The first is to understand your fear. Ask yourself, why have I not started on that task or project yet? What am I afraid of? Where does this fear come from? The second is to reduce your fear. Our fears are often blown out of proportion. Ask yourself these questions to prevent yourself from catastrophizing. Will this matter in 10 minutes? Will this matter in 10 weeks? Will this matter in 10 years? The third is to overcome your fear. If you're scared of what other people think, remind yourself that most people are not, in fact, thinking about you. We're a self-conscious species, but we're not usually a judgmental one. Chapter 6. Get Started. In 1684, Isaac Newton embarked upon his most ambitious work yet. Over the next 18 months, he would work through the night, often foregoing sleep and food, to complete his magnum opus, Philosophia Naturalis Principia Mathematica. When the Principia was published in July 1687, it represented the first scientific attempt to explain how objects move through space. At its heart was a simple observation, pithily summarized in Newton's first law of motion, often called the law of inertia. An object at rest stays at rest, while an object in motion stays in motion unless acted on by an external imbalanced force. In other words, if an object is still, it will remain still. If an object is moving, it will continue moving, unless another force, like gravity or air resistance, prevents it from doing so. Our third emotional blocker is the commonest of all, inertia. When you're doing nothing, it's easy to carry on doing nothing. And when you're working, it's much easier to carry on working. But there are some simple ways to battle through. Look for the frictions in your life. What obstacles are preventing you making a start? And how can you get rid of them? The best antidote to doing nothing is simply to do something. You can take action by first defining your next step and then tracking your progress so you're surrounded by tangible evidence that you're moving towards your goals. The final step is the kindest, creating systems that can help you support yourself long-term. Above all, cut yourself some slack and celebrate the small wins. Part 3. Sustain. Chapter 7. Conserve. The greatest cause of burnout isn't exhaustion, it's low mood. If you can make yourself feel better, you won't just achieve more, you'll last longer too. Our first kind of burnout arises from overexertion. The solution: do less. There are 3 ways to do less in practice. The first is to stop yourself from overcommitting. Limit the list of projects you're working on and get comfortable with saying no. Ask yourself, if I had to pick only one project to put all my energy into, what would that be? The second way is to resist distraction. Ask yourself, can I uninstall social media apps on my phone so that I can access them only through my web browser? How can I correct course and restart if, or more realistically when, I get distracted? The third way is to find moments in your working day to do nothing. Ask yourself, am I treating breaks as a special event rather than a necessity? And what could I do to take more of them? Chapter 8. Recharge. Our second kind of burnout relates to rest time. Depletion burnouts result from not giving yourself enough time or space to truly recharge. The solution: understand how to rest in a way that energizes you. The best way to rest is all about feeling calm, or rather calm. Find an activity or project that makes you feel competent, autonomous, liberated, and mellow. A second solution is to spend time in and with nature. Even a tiny amount of greenery can have a transformative impact. So, take a walk, even if it's a short one, and try bringing nature indoors. Whether that's a new houseplant or just the soundtrack of some birds chirping. Not all rest needs to be so strategic, however. Sometimes, the most energizing thing you can do is to do nothing at all. By doing less today, you'll feel better tomorrow. Chapter 9. Align. There are 4 types of motivation. 1. External motivation. I'm doing this because important people will like and respect me more if I do. People who highly rated this statement have high external motivation. 1. Introjected motivation. I'm doing this because I'll feel guilty or bad about myself if I don't. People who highly rated this statement have high introjected motivation. 1. Identified motivation. I'm doing this because I truly value the goal it's helping me work towards. People who highly rated this statement have high identified motivation. 1. Intrinsic motivation. I'm doing this because I love the process as an end in itself. People who highly rated this statement have high intrinsic motivation. The Odyssey Plan, it is very simple. Your current path, write out in detail what your life would look like 5 years from now if you continued down your current path. Your alternative path, write out in detail what your life would look like 5 years from now if you took a completely different path. Your radical path, write out in detail what your life would look like 5 years from now if you took a completely different path, where money, social obligations, and what people would think were irrelevant. Misalignment burnouts arise when we spend time on goals that don't match up with our sense of self. Overcoming misalignment is a lifelong task, one that requires us to continually work out what really matters to us and change our behavior accordingly. There are some surprisingly simple ways you can work out what matters to you today. First of all, look to your long-term future. Try envisioning yourself on your deathbed. Morbid as it sounds, this is the best way to give you a clearer view of what you want from your life right now. Next, think about your medium-term future. Reflect on what accomplishments you'd want to be celebrating in a year's time. Then ask yourself, what does that 12-month celebration mean for my actions this week? Last, you should be ready to think about your short-term future. Because the good news is, you can take a step to alignment right now. What are 3 actions today that might take you a little step closer to the life you want in a year?